How's it going, John?
Hey, Eric. Not too bad. How are you tonight?
Great. Another episode of Mostly Security. How was your week? Weekend, I guess. I know what your week was last week.
Yeah.
Same as mine.
Weekend was busy. Weekend was busy for sure. We're solidly into the swing of school, so it seems like there's something going on every single night, and so the weekends are good. But this coming weekend we've got oh man, something's going on Friday. I don't remember exactly what, and then Saturday there's a Komoricon or something like that going on in downtown Portland. Basically an anime convention, and my older son, and this is not like having to twist my arm really hard or anything like that here, but my older son has, and some of the friends from his class have decided that they are really into anime, which is fine, and I think I might have even said on this podcast months ago though that earlier this year we did like a big anime marathon for watching a whole bunch of Miyazaki movies and a bunch of other stuff. And anyway, we're gonna go down there on Saturday, and then anyway, gotta most of my days and evenings scheduled for the next week.
Yeah.
Oh, it is what it is. It's good.
Yeah. Well, Friday, I am going to the middle school and doing a presentation on online security and cybersecurity in general for my son's technology class and a couple of the other grades.
Nice.
So that'll be fun.
Very nice.
And then Saturday, I hear you on the predefined activities. I am painting.
That's right. You'll have your
before,
basement done.
Remodeling the basement, and there will be a new wall and a new future office, as opposed to just kind of me floating down here in the vast emptiness that is the basement. There will now be a wall with a door and more of an office, an official office. So that'll be nice.
Maybe instead of painting, you should put up one of those like foam walls with noise canceling or noise dampening foam.
Right. Make it a recording studio instead of an office.
Yeah.
Well, it also doubles as a craft room, so...
Oh, so ugly foam on walls, not exactly appealing.
No. So there will be... The room will be big enough for my office and then my wife's crafty stuff. So
very cool.
It'll be fun.
Well, good luck getting it finished.
Yeah.
Let's see. How about we dive in? Got a few topics tonight for sure. I had one small piece of follow-up. Last week we squeezed in the podcast before a dinner reservation.
Right.
So that was fun, and just kind of hunkered down in a conference room basically, or in one of those meeting rooms. But we talked about the libSSH vulnerability, and
right.
I saw a link fly by to a Docker container that you can use to demonstrate the vulnerability, which I thought was interesting. And we can throw a link in the show notes. But the cool thing about this was, basically, in fact, all the check-ins were 3 to 6 days ago. Somebody went in and once that was available, quickly set up a Docker container, and then you can, it's got instructions right out here for verifying, which is totally interesting. And I hadn't even really thought about the fact that Docker would make it really, really easy to, verify this. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah. I had heard or read a couple of things that, initially the libSSH exploit probably wasn't as big as people thought, and then they started to find out all the places it was actually used that nobody thinks about. Cisco routers and F5 hardware and things like that. It's like, oh, maybe this is a little bit more more widespread than initially thought.
One minor thing, at least in the README here for the container, is scanning for potentially vulnerable. Sorry, I'm quoting here. Scanning for potentially vulnerable hosts can be performed by simply doing a regular banner grab on affected SSH ports with a particular value. So I thought that was also minorly interesting.
Well, and then in additional follow-up, there was an article on, I'd never heard of this website before, servethehome.com.
I hadn't either before I saw this.
That basically took the Bloomberg Supermicro hardware chip hack story from a few weeks ago and took quotes from the article and then tore it apart line by line, bit by bit, highlight after highlight, and kind of went through, and it is really long, but we'll throw the link in there if you want to see a very well done teardown of the entire Bloomberg story. The title is Investigating the Implausible Bloomberg Supermicro Stories. So
right.
It was well done. It basically did take bits and pieces and explain the technical details behind what Bloomberg kind of glossed over and why it just wouldn't actually function that way at all, or was highly unlikely, to the point where Apple's Tim Cook actually called for a retraction of the article, of the Bloomberg article, in a interview with BuzzFeed News, and Andy Jassy of AWS basically tweeted out, yeah, Tim Cook's right. It's all wrong. Yeah, there should be a retraction, Supermicro. So that's a great article.
If you're interested at all in kind of follow up and what the status is, that was a great article. Learn a few things.
Yep.
And you mentioned BuzzFeed News, which just in a little bit of foreshadowing, I think I complained a couple episodes ago that, oh my gosh, I'm having to do a BuzzFeed News feed or article, and my article today is also from BuzzFeed News.
And it wasn't a top 10 things. What is BuzzFeed's famous for?
Totally clickbait.
10 things that whatever.
Right. Oh, terrible.
Anyways.
Terrible. All right, what do you got for me for topics tonight?
So, you know how much I love JavaScript, John.
I do know how much you love JavaScript. Yeah.
So apparently, there has been a 0-day exploit that has been actively exploited and available in a extremely popular jQuery plugin for at least 3 years.
I don't think that's what the definition of a 0-day is. You keep using that word. No.
I don't think you know that. I don't think you think that. What is it? I don't think that means what you think that means.
Yes.
Yeah. So the title of the article is 0-day in popular jQuery plugin actively exploited for at least 3 years by Catalin Kimpanu for ZDNet. I see his name all over my feed for various stories. He's, kind of killing it with a lot of the stories, and this was one of his. And some of my favorite bits of this one is it was discovered by a researcher for Akamai. What is it? Web.
CDN
content, CDN distribution,
yeah,
stuff, and his name is Larry Cashdollar.
No,
that's his name, Larry Cashdollar.
Really?
Yes.
Nice.
Is found this and ended up getting it reported as a CVE, and as he started to dig into it, he found that it has been actively exploited for multiple years. He went through all the projects that's forked it. It's been forked on GitHub. So by forked on GitHub means it's been, copied
So wait,
probably pulled.
What was the actual plugin?
The jQuery file upload plugin.
Okay.
It is the second most popular plugin outside jQuery itself, and it's included in WordPress plugins. All just
so this
all
and this
over the
is
internet.
something that lets you change. I mean, if it's an upload file, sorry, I haven't actually read this article, but if it's something that lets you upload files, then it's going to presumably persist them somewhere, which means you're taking user provided data and putting it on your server. And if if there's a vulnerability and the user can choose both the file to upload and where to put it, well then,
yeah,
I presume something along those
uploading
lines.
shells, whatever you want to upload, but he had found YouTube videos. Mr. YouTube, I'm talking to Mr. YouTube. There are YouTube videos dated back to August 2015 that show how to exploit.
Really?
That show how to take advantage of this exploit. So, anyways, it's good. It's got a CVE, but it all came about because back in 2010, so 8+ years ago, the Apache HTTPD server added a feature. You remember the .htaccess files that you would throw in a folder to determine who could have access, and the web server would read that file and determine who could, whether or not you should be allowed to see that folder or not. Well, Apache added a feature to ignore those security settings defined in those .htaccess files, but the plugin was dependent on a custom htaccess file to manage its security restrictions about where files are uploaded and what things it can do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So
there's a feature in Apache, plugin gets built before or after. I guess I don't know.
5 days after Apache released the security fix to disable this dependency on .htaccess files, the plugin was released 5 days after that. So it was kind of essentially at the same time. And you can still configure Apache to take use of that, and turn that on and off. But by default,
it's disabled.
Right. They fixed that. So, anyways, and it's thousands of projects that are vulnerable. So,
wow.
I guess, to be fair, not JavaScript specifically.
What was that? What was that quote? I sent you a quote sometime this week.
Yeah.
Do you remember what it was?
It was something along the lines of JavaScript is great because it allows you to do anything, and the problem with JavaScript is people do.
Yeah, something
like that. It was something like that.
Right.
Anyways.
Yes. Anyway.
So there you go. A 4-year-old 0 day. 8-year-old 0 day, however you want to start counting. But it's also, again, we've talked about it before, just kind of a reminder, if you are using open source in any of your projects or depending on open source, just because there's lots of people on the internet staring at it doesn't make it any more secure than
you gotta stay up on top. Gotta stay on top of it, and there's no guarantee that the thing you can do is make sure that when something like this is disclosed, that I guess similar to your PHP discussion from last week, as soon as there's a fix availability, you gotta move, you gotta stay up to date.
Right. Because you likely have been, if you're running a website that's taking advantage of the jQuery file upload plugin, you are likely that you have been exploited at some point in the last 3 years, or an attempt to exploit whatever you were doing.
Right.
Maybe you're not doing anything interesting. So that was That was my first one, and then I had probably just another short one. Apple, iOS, the GrayKey.
I know Apple. Yeah, I've heard of them before.
Box. So GrayKey was a box that law enforcement has been using to break into iPhones from suspects. They plug it in and it just kind of brute forces the passcode.
Yes.
And Apple has been playing cat and mouse with this company for a while. Apparently, with the latest iOS update, the GrayKey box no longer functions. And Apple's not saying what they did, and nobody can tell. A couple of security researchers have looked at it, and they're not sure what Apple did to change it either. So we'll see how long this one lasts. But as of right now, whatever GrayKey was doing before no longer functions.
Oh, interesting. So I thought that there was an explicit thing like there. The in iOS 12 or prior to that, you could plug a USB device into the Lightning port, and there was for some reason, like there were situations where the USB device would basically be loaded even if the screen was locked, right? Do you remember that? And then they added a thing so that
it would shut off ports.
Yeah, after
and just do power
a few seconds, or when the screen locked, it would also shut off the data port. And yeah, exactly. So, but this is more than just that, because that was public.
Because they got around that, whatever Apple did there, they got around that one as well.
Oh, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, so this one now appears more recently that they may have closed it, and who knows, maybe, like you say, maybe in another couple weeks the GrayKey box will start working again. Who knows? One more quick story on a win for privacy.
Yeah,
because just because it probably is a legitimate excuse or court ordered or whatever it is for law enforcement to do it. If law enforcement can do it, so can other people who are not beholden to laws necessarily.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Anyways.
Yep.
Those were the two topics that caught my eye this week.
Well, so my first topic was particularly small, I think, but it was interesting enough that I thought it was worth calling out. So this is a link to the Cromium project that was a security vulnerability, basically. And so it's a defect that was submitted, slightly more than 90 days ago, because it was automatically disclosed after 90 days when nothing had been, no action had been taken on the bug. So I found that interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you see this? Did you pull it up?
I'm just reading it now.
Yeah. So let me see. Let me get my right thing up. So the deal here is that there were a couple of points about this. So the specific defect or vulnerability is that there are APIs available to Chrome extensions that are broader in scope than they should be. In particular, that extensions can access APIs that should only be available by use of the debug permission or debugger permission. So, but the tricky thing here, I guess the first thing that jumped out at me that I didn't realize was if you install a Chrome extension on one device, it can automatically and silently be synced to other devices unless prevented by enterprise policy. You have noticed that?
Yeah, I have a couple different Macs and my plugins. I'll put it on one and it'll show up on the other one.
I'm sure that has happened to me and I have just not noticed. But yeah. so yes, I guess that's a thing. So, and then the second thing that was interesting here, the specific thing about the vulnerability that he or she used to describe this was a setting the download permission. Evidently, there's a function, page.setDownloadBehavior. So you can basically send a command to the debugger to set the download behavior, and what he's doing is he's saying allow downloading to, for example, home user.ssh file, the .ssh. So this is a directory that holds SSH keys, and so if you can upload public keys,
somebody's private key.
The keys that would then allow you to SSH to the device. Well, that's a way to open up a backdoor, basically.
Right.
So I thought that was particularly interesting because basically you can then have an extension that's valuable, interesting, installed one place, synced other places, and then maybe when it gets someplace that's interesting, it could do something and possibly even, I have to imagine an extension has ability to call URLs, load data, say asynchronously, kind of a common thing for a browser extension to be able to do. And so, I'm sure you could notify, hey, I'm here. You could do stuff. And then the third point here that I also thought was particularly interesting is, since this is running in the context of the browser, if you're on an operating system that is, let's say, an entire browser, so Chrome OS,
right,
this actually allowed access to locations that would normally be inaccessible to the user entirely. So, the examples he used was home Kronos, and I gotta say, I'm not a Chrome OS aficionado.
Well, you can have multiple users in Chrome OS, so could you pull data, like in schools, would you be able to use something like this to pull data from other users, like from the teacher's account on that Chrome OS or the admin account on that Chrome OS?
Oh, interesting.
Or other student accounts on that kind of shared Chromebook.
That would be an interesting thing to try if there's a way to leverage it. Presumably, if you can access any file, any path, then you should be able to go to that user's path, set up their SSH keys, log in as them, get data that way. Even if you can't read directly from this extension, read arbitrary files from the file system. If you can set it up for a backdoor and then get in through the backdoor, maybe you could do that.
Well, I also appreciate that this link you had here with this issue has a handy attachment called evilextension.zip.
You like that?
So I can download that and just try it.
You like that? And then I did like the there's a comment in there that says deadline exceeded, automatically de-restricting. So, who the Chrome OS or Chromium users didn't deem this important enough to fix within the 90-day disclosure window. So,
Well, they did fix it on the same day it got de-restricted or the deadline was exceeded, but it's not instable.
Sorry, I see that comment.
It's still in their
development
branch.
That also says the specific case of page.setDownloadBehavior. So if there are other debugger commands that can be sent.
Right. They fixed the pure evil one and probably need to still fix some slightly less evil ones.
Well, I guess I would treat that as they put a Band-Aid on, but they didn't actually treat the actual cause.
That's right.
Here's a symptom. Anyway, that was my first one. And then my second topic was, this is the BuzzFeed one. And you got to open this up. So this is a massive ad fraud scheme exploited Android phones. So
this is amazing.
Isn't it? This is crazy. So You gotta go to this this site, and this is BuzzFeed News. So I'm sorry, BuzzFeed. I understand you are totally turning the other, or turn the page, grown up. It still is a little weird to me. And this whole thing seems to have been researched, discovered, found, verified, and disclosed to Google by BuzzFeed News. So, I mean, it's not just that they have a legitimate, reporter. This was investigative journalism. I was almost about to say at its finest, which might be right. I don't know. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's a world gone mad. It's a mad world.
That's right.
So this is an insane situation. So this is a essentially fraud scheme to earn money from fake ad views. But in mobile apps. But one of the things that, ad companies are very sensitive to is fraud. Right. So how do you prevent fraud? Or how do you prevent your fraud being detected, I guess I should say. And evidently, these people's plan and strategy was to buy legitimate apps that have significant user bases and are performing a service for the user or the real user. B, continue to maintain and release new versions of those apps so that they actually have a legitimate following, user base, and visibility, I guess. And then C, monitor the user's behavior inside those apps so that D, they could mimic the user behavior or, use legitimate user patterns and behavior to actually perform the fraud. So since they're mimicking or using real user behavior to for their bots, essentially, they were able to fly under the radar and potentially costing tens or hundreds of millions of dollars in ad fraud.
The thing that amazes me is that Google said last year they check for people violating this policies, and they took down 700,000 apps that were in violation of their store policies around ad fraud. That's a big number.
That's almost 1 million. Yeah. Remember when there were less than, when there's 1 million apps available on the App Store.
I remember back in the early days of the web when you had banner ads, right? They came in 2 or 3 sizes, right? That banner at the top, to the point where like Photoshop had, specific size you could click the banner ad size. And there was a lot of talk about click fraud and how do they protect against click fraud. This just takes click fraud and ratchets it up to a whole new level.
To 11 and a half.
Beyond, yeah.
Yeah. So this, let's see, I'm looking at the author, Craig Silverman, give him a shout out. This is a massive article, and it went through a bunch of details about how the apps were chosen, what happened when they after they were purchased, how it was detected, and etc. So I mean, it's another one of those incredibly long articles.
Yeah, and they would buy the apps, they would contact these people and buy the apps with Bitcoin and pay more than they thought they wanted, which is why if someone contacted you and said, hey, we'll give you several $1,000s or, $100,000. I don't know how much. I mean, if you're talking millions of dollars that they're making.
Yeah, I mean, you have to imagine that, somebody spends a little, and they didn't, if there was a number on how much they were paying for the apps in here, I didn't notice it. Did you notice one?
No, I didn't see any numbers on, but I saw that they offered Bitcoin, and the guy who was selling the app was surprised, thought it was quite a bit, but hey, someone wants to buy my app for that amount of money, sure, I'll sell.
Right. Well, I mean, you make your Bitcoin illegitimately by, using a Monero miner or getting, sorry, I don't mean to tie the things together, but I mean, I do, because you gotta figure that's one of the things they gotta think about is how to
Kickstart.
Yeah.
You're not going to go on Kickstarter or Indiegogo. I want to buy apps and then commit app fraud.
Right. Well, crazy.
Ad fraud.
Crazy. So, anyway, I'm trying to see if what other points to mark about here, but this is an literally enormous article. So, the fraud was discovered first, though, by basically a bug, probably got a little greedy, something like that. But basically one of the apps was displaying the unique ID of another app in order to attract the ad bids. And so they basically did a graph, basically, right? This app that we're detecting anomalous behavior is claiming to be one of these other apps. So those are connected. And then following that out, these apps are all claiming to be written by these, various authors, but there's this similarity in these addresses. And, it was one of those, kind of pull on the thread, and it's the same thing that you have to do if you're trying to track down a network penetration or something like that. You're kind of pulling one fact at a time and going from lead to lead. So yeah, there's a number of almost like flowcharts in here of these four people are the owners of Fly Apps, which is the owner of all these apps. They have similar Google Play addresses and similar support email addresses, or sometimes the same support email address. And anyway, so this is just a bonkers story, especially since, and this is the thing that kind of blew my mind a little bit, was there was a comment that said, hold on, I think I pulled this out to actually say, there was a comment about the estimation of, something like $75 million worth of damage. But the quote was from essentially this tipster was, your estimation of 75 million accumulated damage is probably 10% of the real numbers.
So getting towards $1 billion.
Getting towards $1 billion, which I don't know if you're aware of this. I mean, I assume that you didn't win the lottery because you don't live in North Carolina
No.
or wherever that was. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say you probably didn't even buy a ticket.
My odds were the same whether I bought one or not. So let's just say I bought one.
Well, I heard, so the lottery, mega bucks. I don't know. Sorry. As you can tell, I don't play the lottery. I'm not a big gambler, he says. And anyway, that's $1 billion is a lot of money.
That's what they tell me.
I've heard that. I've heard that.
Well, that one's cool. Very well done. Very thorough reporting with lots of cool charts and just kind of almost a narrative, just as it kind of weaves through the story and the ins and outs and kind of the facts. It's almost like that board game Clue.
Right.
Just kind of go from lead to lead, and eventually you're gonna name who did it.
Right. Oh, and I guess one of the other things I should say in here is that a lot of the advertising and pictures and things here are, they use fake profiles, so they've got pictures of people that are they're
stock
they're
photos.
They're real people, obviously, but the not as they are being posited.
Don't believe everything you read online, people.
All right. Well, hey, how about something fun?
Well, I had something that I thought was going to be fun or funny, but I'm actually annoyed. So it's not something fun. It's something that annoys
I don't
Eric.
think you're understanding the concept of something fun.
It would be fun if it worked.
Okay.
Let's put it that way. What I wanted to do was to pull out my iPhone and look at screen time.
Okay.
And have a short conversation about screen time and how cool it is and how you can kind of see what type of things you focus on, how much time you spend, how many pickups you have. It's got a lot of, if it actually worked, interesting data. I don't know if you've enabled screen time on your phone.
I don't remember. Although I will say, I did overhear my son, my older boy, telling my younger boy, "You got to go in and enable screen time on your iPad. That way, you get to set the pin on it." Which I found. Yeah. Okay, that's cool. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about that because you can do, how much time you use your phone per day, and we could have a little fun conversation about what is the thing you do the most. What are you worried about? What are you embarrassed now that you looked at, that you stare at for too long on the phone? But mine is blank.
Yours is blank. That's funny because I was just listening to the latest ATP on my drive home where John Syracuse was complaining about screen time.
Yes, and I have it set up for my kids, and it worked for about a week. I have the same problem that he talked about in that episode, where I could see my kids' behavior and I could go in and then I could go have a conversation with one of my children about their excessive use of Snapchat. But I don't see any of the data anymore, and it just doesn't. I want it to work, but it doesn't. I know I sat and listened to music probably for 2 or 3 hours today. And it says I listened to music for 16 minutes. And that's not even close to accurate. Was that
because that was the time that your phone was actually unlocked while you were listening to music? And if it's locked, it doesn't count?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I have no idea. But anyways, if I go by the stats in screen time right now, I'm looking pretty good because I hardly ever use my phone. And there's no way that I only used my phone for 40 minutes today.
Yeah.
That was might be something fun at some point in the future.
Okay.
But I wanted to do that today, and I went and looked just before we started recording, and I have no data. I know I've had this on for weeks, but it only shows me today's and yesterday's data, and then doesn't think I've been on my phone anytime prior to this, so... Oh well.
I'm actually looking at mine, but for other than a game that I was playing earlier, I have calendar at an hour as my highest. Which is a little ironic. I'm trying to figure out why the calendar would be the number one, which is only 4 minutes ahead of WebEx because I was on my phone for a couple of calls today, and then everything else is just garbage. Like if a couple minutes, evidently I sat in Eero for 5 minutes.
Well, I've only been on Overcast for 3 minutes, which, as you well know, podcasts are all less than 3 minutes long. So well, yeah, clearly,
I that's right. This claims I was on Overcast for 11 seconds, but I listened to it for my whole drive home.
So maybe there is something about when the screen locks, it doesn't count that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess it is titled Screen Time, to be fair.
It is. Yeah. So that overcast, I'm sure that as I was walking out or as I was getting in the car, I probably put on the podcast, and then locked the phone and threw it over in the seat, the passenger seat. Yeah, I can guarantee you that I listened to a lot. It took me a lot more than 11 seconds to drive home.
Yeah.
Just saying. But I evidently I picked my phone up 29 times today. Which I don't know if that's high or low.
Let's see. Where did I go? I picked mine up. Where's that at? 68 times today.
Wow.
So.
Okay.
That was not fun at all.
Okay. I'm better. I'll go with the golf score is better on that one. Which that's a little ironic because I'm certain that I often click my phone. Today might just have been anomalously low. So.
All right, let's do something that you're something fun because
okay,
mine was less fun.
Okay, my something fun. Now you haven't gone to this one yet, right?
I just clicked on it.
Okay, click on it because I gotta. This is such a small, tiny little thing. But this is a Apologetic Miner.
Apologetic Miner.
So there's basically crypto mining is where by various ways you get hacked or a web script gets hacked and a miner gets downloaded and basically steals the use of your CPU and or GPU for some time to mine mostly Monero coins while you're sitting on a web page. We've talked about it a few times, but so this is an apologetic miner. So I have to read this to you. So basically
I just read it.
In the script. Yeah. So in the script, so there's two here that I have to read. So in the script of the web page, there's a comment that basically says, "I'm sorry, but I'm mining on your device, not because I want to, but because I need the cash. I am truly sorry, but currently I can't find or get any job, so I have to resort to my black hat way in order to survive and afford food. If you have any employment opportunities, please email me at this Proton Mail address. I really need a job or some form of income. Once I have a job and stable income, I will shut down these miners and remove any malware found on each device." and he basically cats this into I'm sorry.txt file in the temp directory. And then there's another thing from Android miner for evidently ADB is like the debug port on an Android device. And it says, "Hello there. I see you found my miner. Chances are, if you're reading this, then I've previously infected your device. You may have seen such files like M7M and I'm sorry.txt. Well, I wrote that message one late night, and I decided it needed updating. So here we are. I do not intend to do any harm to any device or anyone. I'm just a simple hacker looking for a job and looking to make some money." Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that's all for now. I'm sorry for any problems I've caused, but I'm unemployed and I need to make some cash/crypto to survive. So anyway, I found that hilarious. And then the other thing is, scroll down. Do you see the image? Just a couple.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Target confirmed Canadian. I'm sorry. I just found that to be really, really funny. I'm sorry, my Canadian friends and relatives, but clearly this miner is too nice. He must be a Canadian.
Well, and I don't remember if you said at the beginning, but so this came because a guy was running a honeypot.
Oh yeah,
and it was a security researcher running a honeypot, and so his honeypot was targeted,
right?
And that's how they found it.
Right. So he had a honeypot. Somebody connected to the ADB honeypot, uploaded this APK presumably, and Anyway, this was my something fun. I just thought this was hilarious. It made me laugh earlier this week. And
that's great. That's awesome.
So there you go.
Much better than my something not fun.
Well, I couldn't find. There's no way I could find something to live up to my something fun last week. Last week's was so cool. So this is had to be something completely different.
All right, dude.
It's time to be done. All right. See you later, Eric.
Have a good night.